this lecture begins Unit 6, and in Unit 6 we're going to take a look at the factor or resource markets for production of goods and services. So we've spent the majority of this class analyzing product markets and analyzing supply and demand in product markets, and what is the role of government in product markets, and what are the various levels of competition in product markets? You know, oligopoly, monopoly, monopolistic competition, perfect competition. We've spent a lot of time talking about the product markets, the finished products that are sold in our market economy. Now we're going to look at the markets for the resources that are used to create those goods and services. And we call those resources factors of production. So this is a little bit of review. We learned about the factors of production in Unit 1. And if you recall, the categories of the factors of production are land, labor, and capital. So land is the natural resources that are used to make goods and services. Labor is the effort that people devote to a task for which they are paid. And capital is any human-made resource that is used to create other goods and services. Remember that an entrepreneur is the person who combines these factors of production to create new businesses. So an entrepreneur has a goal of making money, selling these products in the product market, and earning a profit. Otherwise, there's not a lot of motivation to create and manufacture and sell a new product. But an entrepreneur is the one who's going to assemble these factors of production to create a new good or service. So goods and services are the objects and actions that satisfy people's needs and wants. These are the things that people spend their money on. And if I were to choose one word that I want you to walk away with today, it would be interdependence. And what I mean by that is that producers rely on households or customers in a market economy because they rely on those customers to buy their products so they can stay in business. And customers or households also rely on the businesses to employ them. So this circular flow of economic activity only works because both sides of the equation rely on one another to function and to survive. So we're going to go ahead and draw out the circular flow here, and you will need to be able to recreate this diagram and understand the parties in the diagram and the flows in the diagram, and be able to label examples of what's happening at various spots, and also be able to title the two different markets that are occurring. So here in the beginning of the diagram we have the two parties, the two sides. We have households over here, which represents all the people that live in the country. Households are made up of you and I. These people are going to be the customers, and these people are also going to provide the labor for businesses. And in a market economy, households own the factors of production. So that's very important. If the government owned and controlled the factors of production, the circular flow would not work. This only works in a market-based economy. And businesses are the other party to our diagram here, and the businesses obviously are the ones who are producing the finished products. The entrepreneurs are running these businesses and creating new businesses all the time to create new goods and services. And so these green arrows represent the flow from households to businesses, and then from businesses back to households. And these represent the money flows, because we're going to have some money flows and we're also going to have some physical flows. So the money flows that are occurring, first of all, businesses are going to pay households for the factors of production, because businesses have to purchase land, labor, and capital and entrepreneurship, right, in order to manufacture their products. And the households are the ones who own those factors of production. So when you go to work at your job, you're going to earn a paycheck. So this green monetary flow represents the business paying you for your time. And in the bottom part of the diagram here, we have the monetary flow from households to businesses, and that would represent the money that households are going to spend on goods and services that they purchase from businesses. So this is the way that the money moves in a market economy, in a pure market economy, I should say. Now, when the government gets involved, things get a little dicier, but we're just looking at a pure market economy, a very simple diagram here. And it's not just money that's moving. The money is being exchanged for things. We don't just hand money around for no reason. So in both of these situations, the money is being exchanged for either the factors of production or the final products. So you can see that the households are giving the businesses then the factors of production that the businesses need, and the businesses then pay for those. And the physical flow from businesses to households would be the final goods and services that are then moving from businesses back to households as households purchase these things that are being produced by the businesses. So you will need to know the names of these two markets. The factor market is what's represented in the top half here. The factor market is the market for the factors of production. And in the factor market, the households are the sellers and the businesses are actually the buyers. So this is counterintuitive. We're used to thinking about businesses as the ones who always sell things and households and people as the ones who always buy things. But it's flip-flopped in the circular flow in the resource or factor market. So as businesses buy labor and as businesses buy natural resources and as businesses buy capital equipment and machinery from the individuals who own those resources in a market economy, those would be factor market transactions that are taking place. The product market is represented in the bottom half of the diagram here. And this is the market for finished products, and this is the market that we've spent the majority of the time in this class analyzing. So here we have businesses as the sellers and households as the buyers in the more traditional sense that we're used to thinking about. So I'm going to flip back to the whole diagram here, and I just want you to see how if we took out the households, there would be no one to sell resources to businesses, and there would be no one to buy finished products from businesses. So the households need to be there for the businesses to be able to operate and survive and make a profit. And on the flip side, if there were no businesses, households wouldn't have anyone to manufacture products for them or to employ them, etc. So these two parties are, in fact, interdependent. They really can't survive without the other. But these two parties, the households and the businesses, can get along just fine, and the circular flow can keep flowing without much, if any, government intervention. So in command and more controlled economies, when the government gets involved, the circular flow kind of is interrupted, and it doesn't work because the two sides aren't dependent on each other anymore. They're dependent on the government. So the circular flow really relies on that interdependence. All right, and I think that takes us to the end here. So what you need to be able to do with this information is give examples of things that could happen in the various parts here of the flows. For example, if I went to go purchase a new DVD that just came out at Target, that would be an example of a transaction that would take place down here in the product market. When I paid at Target, when I went and paid for my DVD, I would be giving my money to Target and in turn walking away with that DVD, that final good or service, and taking it home to watch it. When Cub Foods pays their employees for working and stocking the shelves and running the cashier, the cash registers, that would be an example of transactions that take place up here in the product market, because that would be Cub Foods hiring their labor. So when Cub Foods issues paychecks, that would be the money going to the households for the factor of production of labor that is being provided back to the business. So again, if you're able to give examples of some of those different transactions and different things that would happen in the various flows, you're in good shape. And we'll look in the next few days at some more details about how businesses determine how many resources to purchase, and depending on the productivity of those resources. That's kind of where we're going with this. All right, that's it for today.